that you guys are here. This is your prompt, Ed, to push record.
I just did already. I'm on it.
Okay, awesome. Okay, so I have a couple of just housekeeping things I want to talk about before we let Ed take the floor and talk. I really want to make it clear what the intention of these Hangouts are. And what I'm hoping to cultivate is a place where we can collaborate and share and gain insights and ideas from each other. So even if this is your first exposure or you've done this 100 times, we all have so much that we can learn from each other. And I think that's super evidenced in the Facebook group that we're all in, I hope. And sometimes those comments, tone is not there, there's not a lot of context, and it's a lot to write. So it's super nice to have a platform to just chat. So please use this space to learn from each other, and don't let imposter syndrome prevent you from putting your verbal behavior out there. We want to hear from you. We want to hear what you have to say. There's no question that's bad or whatever. Everything is welcome. If you feel comfortable, please put your camera on. It's so nice to see people's faces as we're talking and kind of get a verbal agreement or disagreement. That also kind of cultivates discussion. And I also want to make a note about the chat. If you want to have side conversations about, Pringles or where you're at, that's awesome. But if you think it's something that the whole group would really benefit from hearing in terms of your practice or questions, I really want to encourage you to talk. I really want to encourage this space to be not like the Facebook group where we can just do chats, where we can actually have that real contextual conversation together. So 2 plugs that I want to give. One, if you feel so inclined, please sign up to be a mentor in the ISCA group. There's a lot of people who really just want someone who can ask those questions behind the scenes that they maybe feel uncomfortable posting in the group. And again, the intention for that is for collaboration and sharing. So if you feel like that's something that you would do well at, I want to encourage you to sign up. But then I also want to say to remember that there's tons of resources available. And I can't recommend enough getting in touch and utilizing the support on the Practical Functional Assessment website and the FTF console and CEU opportunities. The team at FTF is just fantastic, and they're an invaluable resource, and I just can't recommend accessing that enough. So one last thing, if we have issues with Zoom and it shuts down, Ed's going to post a new link in the group. So just hop over there if something happens. But hopefully that doesn't happen. But I just wanted to let you know that we're going to try to get it back up if something happens to the feed. All right, so that's the housekeeping. Let me introduce you to Ed. He's awesome. He's a BCBA at Search Day program. I'm going to read what he sent me, which is going to seem a little awkward, but it's so much good stuff. I don't want to miss anything that he sent me. So at the Search Day program, which is a private nonprofit school that's 12 months long for individuals with autism ages 3 to 21. He's worked in the field of ABA for 11 years in multiple settings, including schools, clinics, and homes. He earned his master's in applied behavior analysis and certificates in autism and ABA from Ball State University. He and his team have been implementing the ISCA and SBT since April of 2019. During this time, they've received ongoing consultation from Dr. Hanley and Dr. Ruppel of FTF. In addition to biweekly Zoom consults, they also have participated in on-campus workshops in April and October of 2019, as well as a recent webinar regarding the skill-based treatment of stereotypy. Ed has completed the ISCA and SBT with a range of students, and his appreciation for the processes is immense. Mine too. The use of this intervention has led to a major paradigm shift for his team, how they approach and treat severe problem behavior. Empathy, safety, rapport, trauma-informed care, televisability. These are the words that lead the discussion with every kid on every team he works with. He's going to be presenting My Way, using the ISCA and skill-based treatment to achieve meaningful outcomes in a school setting at the 2020 Autism New Jersey Conference. A review of the shaping techniques used in the Autism New Jersey presentation and the lessons learned will guide much of the discussion for his Google Hangout presentation today. So excited. I'm going to turn off my mic and let Ed have the floor, and I can't wait to hear what you have to share.
Thank you, Hillary. And before I get started, I would like to thank you again, and also from everyone also, just to say you are awesome. You are all over the place on the Facebook group, setting up the mentorship. You're just extremely valuable. I don't know how you have the time to do all the stuff that you do. It's crazy to me, but you do it, and it's just really cool to see. So thank you so much. Hillary's also going to be keeping me grounded so that my idea is to not talk longer than 25-30 minutes in that window. So she's kind of going to give me like the 10-minute warning type thing, 5-minute warning, because I could literally just like keep talking and talking and talking. So I did write some notes too, to try to keep me in. But thank you again in advance, Hillary, for that. So in getting started, I say I'm gonna try to get this stuff into 25, 30 minutes. It's not an easy task. And I say that coming from a place of looking at, I was someone who would sit through like Dr. McGreevy or Dr. Hanley, like all day workshop and think like, how can someone talk all day long and still be concerned about fitting everything in? Like to me, that was nuts. Like that would be that much information at the tip of your fingertips, or as you're discussing things. And I've learned over the last year plus that when you have these great experiences and you have a lot of things to share, that any time limit then becomes a hindrance. You're trying to figure out how am I going to get all this in. So, but I'm going to keep it moving. I have my notes. I have Hillary to help me. So let's get started. I have the title. I'll talk a little bit more about the title in a second, but just like the takeaway that you can have from this little discussion, I would like it to be that you're always learning. When you're going through this process, every time you run this, like I was saying to Hillary before, day by day, session by session, trial by trial, use that as an opportunity to grow. If you think that you've got it, if you think that you have, this down or that down, then you become rigid. And rigidity is the opposite of what you want in this process. So, and that will be especially true for anyone who's communicated with or had any sort of consult with Dr. Hanley or Kelsey. You ask a question like, well, it's better to do this or this? And their answer is yes. They don't choose. They'll say like, yeah, it's either one. That sounds great to me. And it starts to open your eyes that really, there is no set way. You have to be constantly evaluating the performance of your student or client and your own performance, or the staff that are working with them. It's constantly evaluating the performance at that moment. So, I said that Hillary mentioned that I'm going to be presenting with my team at Autism New Jersey. Will also be, let me see real quick. Hillary, you forgot to remind me to do screen share too. I was going to go through the presentation just now. Let's see. There we go. So she mentioned the Autism New Jersey. We're also going to be presenting at the Kids First Conference 2020, as well as a couple other conferences that are going to be coming up. And so there's a little shameless plug. If you can check us out, definitely do so, because in those we have some really, really powerful video. And I think that anyone who has been a part of these discussions before, or seeing some of the work from the Trade Winds crew, like when you see the stuff in video form, you just get a better appreciation for the entire process. And with that, I say like a video is worth 1,000 PowerPoint slides, right? Like you can talk about it, but when you see the awesome stuff that's happening, the stuff that we're going to be showing at these conferences, it's just really powerful. So come check us out. Okay. So in getting started, I have the Learn While Teaching as the title. That's coming from Dr. Hanley's perspective on today's ABA. And for this discussion, we'll be talking about some of the stuff in the Learn While Teaching aspect of it. But, it's really important, I think, to remember, all of these learn by statements. And not only, I would say, during the ISCA or when you're setting up the ISCA or the skill-based treatment, but as he talks about, anytime you're interacting with any student with autism. So what I mean by that is like I said, every session, every trial is an opportunity to really go through this process. And recently at a PLC meeting for a bunch of our RVTs, I was talking about how every time you sit down at a desk with a student, you should have in your mind this checklist. You should run through this, because this is basically assessing in that moment, are they happy, relaxed, and engaged? If they are, great. You can start to proceed with some things, and you can start to see if there's any sort of problem behavior that develops. If they're not happy, relaxed, and engaged, do not run instruction. Do not start doing some work.
I don't know where it went.
Is there? Do I need to mute something or? Here, if you're not muted, you mute yourself, please. Okay. So every time you sit down with a student, you have the opportunity to go through this process, and I pulled this from this paper because I think that the process itself has had a profound effect on me. And when I was reading it, I was just nodding my head because it was like the words were capturing the stuff that I was feeling, the stuff that my team was feeling. You know, I couldn't have said it any better. So each skill-based treatment, every session should mirror this process. And you'll see when we talk about these students upcoming that I'm going to talk about right now, you know, we had like a lot of good days, but often the times when we had hiccups, I think, were times when we weren't following this process each session, if that makes sense. Okay. Sorry for this silly graphic here, but the words are important. So you have to keep the must-haves in focus while building these skills. So the must-haves are the stuff that you see a lot of times on our Facebook group. You know, these words are really thrown around a lot and talked about. But I would say that you have to have these in mind every single time you're going to be interacting with one of your students. So rapport, televisability, happy, relaxed engagement, making sure they're there, trauma-informed care, and safety. You know, you remove any of these, then you're automatically starting off on the wrong foot. So, you know, I don't know if it's, you know, for when you're running this stuff on your own, if it's good to have like some sort of prompt for you or for your staff, but you want to make sure that you are constantly having this, you know, in your forefront of your minds. The mission is going to be having these in place when working with all the students, not just ones who engage in severe problem behavior. And if you look at my classroom notes over the last year, like the change in even like what I'm writing about and the way I'm approaching students, it's incredible. And it's all coming back to, you know, to these. So I actually did a little experiment and I went back and read stuff from about a particular student, February of 2019. And the stuff I was saying then was completely different after this process. So you want to make sure you have these in place. I have a note right here saying there's no turning back. When you know better, you have to do better. And if you're not, then, you know, I would say, what are you in this for? Right? What are you doing? Right? There's no more working students through things, you know, like that, like working students through. It's a thing of the past. So I would say because that is definitely the recipe for developing more severe forms of problem behavior, you know, right away you shouldn't want to do it. But more than that, it just doesn't teach skills. You know, this should be in the business of teaching skills. So the way you do that is you keep these in place and you proceed following the student's lead, not on the, well, we're supposed to teach this on Tuesday, it has to be done by Tuesday, if that makes sense. So jumping into the 3 students, I picked 3 students that I could cover, one for FCR, one for TR, and then one for CABS. And I picked them because they really exemplify the idea of learning through this process, keeping the learning process going. So, and these aren't their real names, but both Kelsey and Greg will definitely recognize some of these students, as well as any of the search people who I forgot to give a shout out before, any of my search people that are here. So James is a student he's a big boy. He's 6'5", 6'6", almost 300 pounds. That's a big boy. He has no vocal. He uses a device, and his problem behaviors are pretty severe. Aggression, but most notable is self-injurious behavior. He actually has a dip on between his eyes, above his nose, from hitting himself in the face. And we've worked with him for a really long time, and as he's gotten older, it's been harder and harder to, quote, work him through things when he has an issue. And I shouldn't say when he has an issue, when he is not ready to learn the way that people are expecting for him to learn. So functional communication had been attempted, and had success in decreasing behavior, but then the problem was, like once you start to bring demands back in, it's not the skill-based treatment process. So bringing demands back in, problem behaviors came back. Along with that, those problem behaviors often brought along with it, the use of restraint to protect himself from hitting his face. So it was like this cycle that started to ramp back up again. So he was definitely one of the first people that was going to be chosen for this when FTF was coming to our school. So learning during this process, when we're trying to figure out how we're going to have him communicate that he's not ready and that he would want, quote, his way, a lot goes into it. We didn't want to use a device. because he had already had a learning history with that. We were trying to strip it to something new. We had another student who was doing my way, 2 hands to the chest. We didn't want anything physical going towards his body because of the fact that he does hit himself. So this is where like the shaping game comes in. This is where the being able to prompt without having him get upset or get emotional, all this comes into play. So, and this didn't happen right away either. This was a process in trying to figure it out, because we were trying, this was, sessions of trying to figure out what would be the best way for him to communicate. And what we ended up coming up with was the end goal would be for him to be able to present a card to someone saying my way. Okay, great. Well, how are we going to get him to start doing that? Because the card means nothing to him. So what we started doing was we started off with just the card being on the table, and we would prompt him that when we come on, it's time to do work, James, bum, 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 we prompt him to touch the card. He picked it up pretty quickly. After getting that down, when he was reliably emitting that, then we moved it to a clip on his waistband that was retractable. Again, then that next step was just touching it on his hip. Great. Once he started reliably doing that, then it was modeling for him, pulling it and showing. So through this process, we were able to give him a reliable method of communicating all around campus without having to depend on his device, which had some, like I said before, there's a history with it, and we weren't really sure all the time if it was even really that valuable to him. Like he would just press buttons and kind of take what you gave him. So we gave him a really solid way of communicating his way. During the shaping process, we also started to see that he wanted his way with a lot of stuff that we hadn't even anticipated in the original ISCA, because now he had the communication. Now he was able to tell us, like, oh, you know what? I really want to leave the classroom now. I really want to go, over to the staff refrigerator in the freezer because he knows that there's ice cream in there. Like stuff that like he would have a problem behavior for before this process, because he had no way of telling us these things. So of course, when he started doing this, we made sure that there was plenty of good stuff in the freezer for him, because he was getting to do this all the time, before we then started, working in the tolerance response. But even, later on, he's practicing all day. There'd be times he'd go, just like in the original FCR process, he'd want his way, he'd get up, go for the walk, go to the break room, or go to, if there was a breakfast spread in the conference room, we were honoring that, each time, because just to build this up. So you could see in his face during this process, that he was recognizing that we were with him. Something that I think that for a really long time in his day-to-day, schooling, just was frankly not there. As much as people tried, as much as people wanted him to do well, it was just one of those things that he had no way of communicating, and this process allowed him to do that. And then another interesting aspect that developed later on down was, we were having issues with reinforcement. There would be sometimes that we weren't sure. It'd be like, he just doesn't seem happy. We'd be sending notes to, Kelsey, and we'd Zoom, on Wednesday mornings. And then they came to visit before our last Autism New Jersey. They were at our school, and they're looking at him, and they're like, someone has to be more available to him. No one's available to him. Now, during the ISCA and during initial treatment, we had looked at him as a student who saw people approaching him as an EO, because it would mean someone's either taking something or giving him something he doesn't want to do. Well, that was kind of true. That's because he had no trust with us. Didn't have the right rapport. Once we had started to develop more of the rapport, he started to show more that he wanted to be with us. So, even just sitting and being with him, I had the experience a couple of times of him. I was, modeling for the staff that were working with him. Like, yeah, come over and just sit with him, and he would reach out his hand. He just wanted to hold my hand during, for like 5 minutes. And that made him happy. That would have never, ever happened in any other context without this process. So this is the stuff that you always need to be aware of and available to your students, because it was mind blowing. It was a kid who, you thought really didn't want to have anything to do with you, other than maybe flicking you her hair if you were a girl and had long hair. But he wanted that connection. He just wanted to strip away all the EOs that he had attached to you, prior to these moments. So let's see, anything else for this? Dun, 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 dun. I think that's good for Mr. James. How am I doing on time, Hillary?
I was going to say, you're doing amazing on time. You've been going for about 15.
Okay, great. Thank you. So my next student is Evie. So she is someone that if you watched any of the videos for Autism New Jersey or any of the conferences, she is a great example of a 0 to 60 student who has like a hairline trigger. So she's 17 years old. Her behaviors that we're targeting are aggression, but also self-injury and tantrum. And she has certain EOs in the environment, messy stuff like something falls, or if someone's like, taking away something that she would like and then have to go do work, something like that. But really, it's these trigger words that we had a really tough time in the beginning trying to figure them out, because they weren't just if you told her these words, they were if she heard them anywhere else in the classroom or even in the hallway. So an example, if you told Evie to sit down, immediately 0 to 60 biting her hand, and that's like an R 1.5. It's not an R1, but it's like a precursor that the R1's coming, right? Or a boom, 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 boom. If you see the video of the ISCA that we're going to be presenting at the conference, I accidentally say one of the words during the ISCA. It was way too hot to handle for her. I didn't mean to. I just said, put your headphones down. It was my fault. But she immediately starts banging the table, taking an iPad, slamming it down. And I kept that in for the presentation to show first how thin her line was, but also then to show at the end where she's in the classroom, people are telling her to sit down, telling other people to sit down, people are opening the windows, which is another EO for her, all happening in the classroom all at once. There's like 6 EOs challenges presented at her within like a 2-minute part. So you see in the beginning what happened in the ISCA, and then you see what happened. So just like a cool special thing that you can see during this process. So for her, the way we were learning during this process was we first tried to do the FCR and TR, right? So we tried to do a tolerance response after she had picked up the FCR. I think it was okay. And she said okay, not that it wasn't okay because it didn't work. So we would, tell her, no, not right now. And she would say like my way again. Or we'd say, all right, Evie, that's all finished. And she'd say, okay. And we were really getting jumbled up. And this is, again, that rigidity. Like, you don't have to teach them at that point, see what's working. That wasn't working at that time, so then we moved on. So if you can see on that graph, actually, you can see where I circled FCR, TR, and then moved to the FCR. So she picked up the FCR again, and then we start going through the process. But we're still not throwing those really, really hard to handle challenges at her. We're removing the iPad and computer, which she likes to watch Barney. She had, in my time at Search, 2014 and on, I had never seen her watching any of that stuff because she wasn't allowed to have it in school because of how serious the behaviors were relinquishing. So you can tell she loved practice because she was able to watch it there. So we moved through those initial steps of FCR, relinquishing, transitioning, and she's doing work. But when we're looking at those trigger words down the line, we're thinking like, okay, well, how are we going to introduce these? Because they're still, like, if we say it accidentally during practice, she's, banging the table. So what we ended up doing was writing a script, because she's able to read, writing a script and just putting at the table of drudgery. So when she'd come over to do work, she would see it. She was definitely aware that it was there, but she didn't have to do anything with it. And we'd spend a few sessions with her with it sitting there. Now, as far as always learning and being aware and being available, something we also found was that these OCD behaviors that she would have of wanting to fix things in the environment, this was all day long in the classroom. Chair would be out, fix it, fix it, fix it, fix it, chair in, window open, close window, close window. When she was happy, relaxed, and engaged in the practice room, she didn't do any of that. As soon as we would introduce a new step in the process, during reinforcement, she would get up and start trying to fix things. It was her sign for us that she was not happy, relaxed, and engaged. So it was really cool to see. So when we first put this script out, she would, do her work. We'd say, okay, you're away. And she'd get up and start fixing things in the environment. And, I would tell staff, like, this is her telling us this is where she needs to be. This spot right here is where we need to be with her. Once she stops trying to fix things during reinforcement, we can move on. So what did moving on look like? So you can see dialogue, a script on the table, then matching words on the cards to the words on the table. So we'd have, it'd say, Evie, Ed says, Evie, sit down. Evie says, cool. So the script would be on the table. I would hand her one. She'd put it down. She'd put the other one down. And then that was it. Reinforce. Next step would be having her actually repeat back just the cool. So then once we, at each new step of that, she would then get up and fix things during reinforcement. And then when she would stop, we would move on to the next step. This went over like a period of days. This was not like 3 to 5 trials and we move on. This was a series of days doing these. So now once she's cool with her saying cool, now we start doing a little prompt. And now it was a full visual sitting on there. So there was no more script. It just said cool on the table. And I would say, okay, Evie, come over and sit down. And I'd point to cool. She would say cool. Then the next step, again, after several sessions of her getting cool with it, was it turned upside down. So it was a blank card, but still cool on the other side. And she knew very well it was on the other side. I said, okay, Evie, come over and sit down. She would say cool. And finally, no card, but I was just pointing at the table where the card had been. It was constantly just fading a little bit more. So we found that this process then was the key to all of her trigger words. Anytime, like with the window open, on her table of drudgery, Ed says it's really hot in here. He opens the window. Evie says cool. That's the way we worked it for every single one of these. Other people sitting down. The special teacher is Patty. Patty says to student, sit down. Evie says cool. Once we started this, once she saw the script come out, it would take 2 trials and she would be cool. Like it was amazing to see. To the point that for remote instruction, we started doing this with her mom because there are certain things that would come up similar to the classroom that they were having extreme difficulties in the homework. So what was really awesome to see was not only were they doing these practice trials with these scripts, but then, mom was able to, on her own, think of things in the moment that actually worked. For example, she's, getting in the shower and the shampoo falls. This would normally be like Armageddon. Evie would have, self-interest behavior, have to go redo everything, get clothes back on, go back to her room, start the process all over again. Mom, remembering back on our session after session over remote, said, the shampoo bottles fall. Evie says cool. And Evie said cool. And then they went with their shower. It was like, she sent me an email, at nighttime with like exclamation points and capital letters, like so excited. That's the stuff that like you watch and, it just blows your mind. And we would have never again been able to learn through this process if we were not doing the process. Like if we were doing business as usual, these things would have never happened. Okay. And the last one is my buddy, Jason. So similar to, let me go back for 1 second with my girl, Evie. So you'll notice that I circled TR over there. So we reintroduced the tolerance response during CAVS, and all those challenges are where her, are in the A, B, C, D. It actually has like the entire alphabet now of challenges that have scripts for it. So like on any given trial, it'll say CAV 6, A, P, whatever letters. And on those ones, staff know they're gonna run, okay, the window has to open. I'm gonna tell her to sit down. I'm gonna say, shh, any of these things that are her triggers are, built in, but you can't do all of them at once or else it would be nuts. All right, so my buddy Jason, he's a little tyke. He's 7 years old. Also, at the beginning of, so I put asterisk, underline, at the beginning of treatment, no vocal responding, ... So stay tuned because there will be vocal responding. He had a poor history with his AAC device. That was actually one of his challenges. If you told him to go get his device, he would engage in disruptive and aggressive behavior. And as most of you can probably guess, it's because he had associated with it with demand. Like there was no value in it to him. He wasn't getting anything from it other than he had to go do things. So I have him circled as something that we learned through in this process because he was someone who, we had assumed that a tolerance response would be a no-go for him because initially, early on, when we were figuring out how he's going to respond, he was a student that we did my way 2 hands to the chest. We had tried to see if he could do an echoic for OK, and that actually led to some problem behavior in the class in the practice room. So we scrapped it and we said, all right, let's just keep the FCR and maybe we'll revisit. So echoics are for him had been a real issue. But once we started going through the practice process, we started to see, he ate it up. He loved that we wanted him to be happy, relaxed, and engaged. He is a student who wants you to be a part of it. Part of his EO is, divided attention too. So like if you have someone in there and you're trying to train, you best be having them train with him and playing with him at the same time, because he would start to engage in frequent behavior simply because someone else was talking to the other person. So again, being aware, trial by trial, sitting there and being available and aware, you learn something, each time. So what we learned for him is that once he had reinforcement down, suddenly echoics weren't that bad. So we started working on them, and we had the idea of like, okay, well, why don't we revisit then the tolerance response, because he's doing so well with it. One of the videos you'll see for Autism New Jersey, again, is so cool because it's this little tiny tyke who, he's in command of the room basically. He wants to have everything with him. He wants to like hoard stuff. He wants to carry it with him. In the video, they're having a glitter party in the classroom. So his teacher just took a giant bin of glitter and threw it in the middle. He's tossing it around, and she says to him, "Jason, that's all finished." He gets up and goes like this, like all confident, like, "No, it's my way." And she's like, "No, I'm sorry." And he looks like, "Okay." I can't even do the voice. It's like this little pipsqueak voice. It's the cutest thing. And you see it, and again, just like with Evie and with the mom emailing me about the whole shower scenario, like it's like one of those moments you realize, wow, this works. I already knew it worked, but this works. This is so cool. So again, I keep repeating it, but like if you're not in tune, every single minute that you're working with these students to, are you at that moment listening to them? Are you at that moment listening, creating joy for them? Are you not at that moment empowering them? So if you see anything that's going on that's a little shifty, figuring out why. And then finally, as you're teaching them, are you doing it based on their performance, or are you doing it because you think that you should be at a certain step? You need to constantly be evaluating what you're learning in that moment, because believe me, like you always should be learning something. So then for the last slide, how am I doing on time, Hillary?
You're doing great. Keep going.
So the last one is, this is really recent. So I blurred out the email. It's some session notes that I wrote to a teacher, but what I was discussing with her, this student is a teenage girl who is, she has, if you think of that really cool graphic with the tree with the skill-based treatment, right? She has a ton of branches, but she has no trunk. She has no true functional communication. She does not relinquish, and she does not transition to work easily. Every time she comes off of the laptop, it's like either bartering, or it's like the first thing is like to go to the yell. So, and of course, functional communication has been taught up a lot, as much as it could have been over the years. She's been with us for a long time. But at the end of the day, like, she doesn't have the trust. There's not the rapport. Like, she is like, in my opinion, like one of the dream candidates for this treatment. So, I'm going to read some of this. This is like a little excerpt that I wrote to the teacher. But this girl is such a good artist that she, recently won an award in the state of New Jersey, like first place for a computer graphic that she drew. It's like if you watch her on the laptop, you'll see like circles on there, and different colors, and you're like, all right, so it's abstract art. But then she zooms back out, and it's like the eyeball of one of her characters. It's nuts. It's really, really cool. She's a great freehand drawer. So at the end of the day, though, these skills that she has, where are they going to get her if she's not able to do, if she's not able to trust, if she's not able to communicate, if she's not able to walk away from it and be denied access or delayed, these are stuff that are imperative for her. So again, thinking about the difference in notes, like what do notes look like for me as a BCBA? I would have most likely, when I'd be talking about her in notes, behaviors to decrease, okay, with it, or if it was increased, it would be the functional communication. But, this is what I was talking to the teacher about, coming up with a wish list, coming up with, what are we going to dream big for her? Because she has all these skills. What can we do? So it was a really good exercise for this teacher to see, this is where the process starts, not by limiting her to saying like, okay, I just want her to communicate that she wants, more time. No, I want her to be able to communicate enough and to build skills enough that she eventually can do these things, because again, she has the skills to do them. So I told her to, dream big. Some possible suggestions would be tell us one nice game after losing. She's also someone who will get very competitive in like musical chairs or like a race in gym. She has to win, right? Participate in an adult-led art class. So like someone teaching her new techniques, you're not gonna be able to learn new techniques if you always want to do it your way all the time, right? So I said, imagine her at 25 years old being commissioned to paint something for a city. Like she has the skills to do that. So then the teacher sent me back this, and the stuff that we've talked about over the last week before break, we're on break right now, was more designed on how are we going to get to this point right here. And obviously anyone who's on here, I'm sure, already knows that the way we get there is through teaching skills, communication. For her, it's going to be definitely communication, toleration, relinquishing reinforcement, transitioning to work, and cooperating. Because if she can get those down, I know like it sounds lofty, some of the stuff, but the sky is really the limit for her.